remember one morning I woke up and it was probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I called my mom and I said, I need to go to rehab because I'm gonna kill myself. I had an interview with NBC Denver, which was like, the top market. I had an in there, and within 10 minutes, they're like, you've done XYZ, people have seen you naked, you're never gonna report hard news, ever. Let go of that dream. I didn't know what else to do. I was just hanging on for dear life, literally. So I got hired at the university to teach addiction courses. I went to rehab again, and I got sober and clean and was like, get your shit together once and for all, there's no more chances. You use your looks and you lose your power. You will interest people, but you'll never move them.
Hey guys, it's Adam Jablin. Welcome to the Hero Project podcast. And to be honest with you, I don't even know what to say right now. I just had the best conversation with Jo Weatherford, and I'm not even going to try to summarize it. Just press play, enjoy the conversation, and if you want to find Jo, we'll have all of her links beneath. Click the subscribe button and enjoy this really powerful conversation. So Jo, welcome to the Hero Project podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here in Florida.
I'm so excited to be here, and what a trip it's been.
Tell me a little.
Well, I got to come down early, and my boyfriend is here for Miami Music Week and is a DJ and producer, and so it was a lot of mayhem, which is very interesting to do sober. Yeah. Probably as the only two people in the room that were, but it was a great experience, and then here I am with you.
The Miami Music Festival sober.
Yes.
It's a first. What
a trip. Yeah, it was interesting because I'm not around a lot of intoxicated people very often anymore. I've very consciously set up my life to not be. So it was a beautiful experience, though. I saw myself in all of those interactions. And what really hit me the most was, it's like this bell curve, right? Like in the beginning of the night, early evening, there's this freedom that comes with alcohol. And then there hits this point where it's like you're just not there anymore. And it's like I'm talking to a hologram of you, and there's nothingness. And so often we drink because of social anxiety and we want to connect, but then the thing that we use to connect actually eliminates all connection. So it was just fascinating. No judgment, to just be in that experience.
I found his sister. Yeah, I used to live in that one area.
Yeah.
Let's, so we're both sober.
Yes.
I know you're 13 years clean and sober. What brought you to that? Like what brought you to this is not working anymore?
Well, I laugh because for me, there was no question. There was no denial, right? Like I was an absolute train wreck. I mean, I was in jail. I was suicidal. There was no, oh, this isn't that bad for me. I couldn't lie to myself. And I'm actually really grateful for that. Because a lot of people, they're just bobbing right below the line. Like, am I not? Maybe I'm an alcoholic. Should I stop? For me, it was like, if you don't stop, you're going to die. Something will happen or you'll kill yourself. So, I mean, I hit that point very early on too. I was in my early 20s, and on paper, it looked like I had this amazing life. I had just shot for FHM magazine. I'm working for Playboy. My boyfriend plays for the Chargers. I've got this awesome spot in Newport Beach. So on paper, it looked good. But nobody understood how much I hated myself. I hated my body. I hated my life. I mean, I remember one morning I woke up and it was probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I called my mom and I said, I need to go to rehab because I'm going to kill myself. And it wasn't like I want to die, because I actually think a lot of us have that experience of what is the point? I don't really want to be here. It was so much deeper than that. It was, I cannot do this one more day. And so I went to one of those bougie ass $100,000 treatment centers in Southern California, and it kept me alive. So I'm very grateful for it. And I stayed sober for about 1.5 years. But during that time, I was able to get out of LA, out of that world. Some of it was forced upon me though, because when I went into treatment, I was, I was a professional model. I'm 120 pounds. And during detox, so for 2 weeks, they fed me Sunny Delight and Ruffles potato chips. And I shit you not, I was 170 pounds after like a month of being there. And I was like, well,
Right.
that career's over, which I already knew I needed to get out of that environment because it was the perfect place for someone like me. Like I couldn't go get a real job. I didn't know what time it was half the time, So not only, could I drink or be a drug addict, it was encouraged. It was fine and I only had to shoot a few hours a week. Like I could typically make it to that. But a lot of people would be like, oh, well, how could you do that? And it wasn't my intention. I didn't think like, oh, I want to go work in the adult industry. But it was like that frog that just slowly boils, So you throw a frog in boiling water, it jumps out.
Yeah.
But you put it in that lukewarm water and you just slowly start compromising your values. And, next thing you know, you wake up in that position.
Can I go into a little different direction real fast?
Yeah.
First off, let me give you a lot of respect real fast because I didn't have that awareness. I actually had to have an intervention. So the fact that you had some voice speaking to you, you know what I mean? I give you a lot of credit for that. But secondly, especially today's age, is this thing loud? Okay. Yeah, just go keep up. Okay. I don't know what's going on today.
Lawnmowers,
Yeah.
leaf blowers, sirens.
I remember something being like Aries is in full. I don't know. I was like,
No, it is.
Right?
It's a thing. Yeah. Everything is going to shit over and
Right.
over and over
I'm
again.
taking a little break. Let me just hide this.
Yeah, sounds good. You don't want to see my Darth Vader thing there? Can we just jump back in? Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And maybe I'm projecting too a little bit, right? But this is driving me nuts.
You can wait a minute or two.
Yeah, just time out. I want to talk about the body.
Yeah.
That's
a big thing.
Give you a lot of credit for, but also ask a question about is that you were okay with letting your body go with the drink and the Ruffles potato chips. Did that send you into any sort of loop? Because I would want to lose the weight again.
Well, and I certainly did, but this is the craziest thing that happened. I remember being in Southern California and we could ride our bikes, right? We could leave the treatment center and ride bikes. I remember coming up over this hill, the sun was up. It was this moment of like awe. I hadn't been happy sober like since I was 4 or 5, So it was this moment of I'm really happy. And then it hit me even as I'm like in a body I don't recognize. Literally during family week, my parents came in to see me. My dad walked right by me. I was unrecognizable, okay? I was like, I'm free. For the first time in my life, I'm not being looked at as only a sex object. I'm not, worried about my weight. That's not what defines me. That's not my identity anymore. So it was almost like having this complete shift, this paradigm shift of, oh, I'm not the young, hot sex object anymore. It was this moment of freedom. I'm like, so if I'm not that, who am I beyond my body? And I never asked that before. And I mean, we can go into it deeper where that comes from. I mean, I was molested when I was 4. So I got all these very deep stories ingrained in me that that's what I am here for, is my body, is my sexuality. So as awful as it was, and trust me, I did get on it and lose the weight, I really enjoyed that experience as well, because it forced me to look at myself as more than that. I didn't have a choice.
Yeah, I just want to give you a lot of credit. This is about you, and I want to keep going into your story. But there's an old movie with Sylvester Stallone where he gained weight for this movie called Copland. Okay, he had to go see a therapist. He had to work
Yeah.
with it because he was letting, like, everyone knew him as Rocky and Rambo and you know, the guy, you know? And he had like an identity crisis.
Yeah.
So the fact that you were embodying it and that you allowed yourself to be free, I think that says a lot about who you are.
Yeah. Thank
Like your
you.
insides.
Well, and it came as the gift of sobriety. If I had still been drinking, I would have just, that shame and that compounding hatred would have absolutely taken me out. But it's fascinating because I do work with a lot of high profile people now, and they're either selling a company. So like, I'm not the CEO anymore. Now I'm just this retired dude, or pro athlete, right? Like, I'm not the star wide receiver of this NFL team anymore. I'm retired. And the way they say it is, so who am I now? And I'm like, it's just a shift to, who are you now? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, here's a great opportunity for you to find out who you are beyond that. Because we're all told from very, very young age, I love you as long as. Mm-hmm. I love you as long as you're quiet. I love you as long as you're smart, or you're pretty, or you're athletic, or you do what I say. And we grow up, even when we have phenomenal parents, which most of us don't, we have this idea of conditional love, and we come into this world, and social media has exasperated it to such a degree that we think we are special for certain reasons. And we put all our eggs in that one basket of, that is the defining part of me that is lovable and special. But what happens when that goes away? Not many of us, and I will say thankfully, really get a chance to find that out. But when you do, it's special.
Extremely. It's actually something I still work on, this conditional love thing. It's an ongoing process for me. So you leave the treatment center, you're riding a bike, you feel free. You said some things kind of pushed you out of California.
Yes.
Where does the journey go from there?
Well, it was a good, like, holding stage for me. Like, I was kind of in between worlds for a while. I felt like everything was just sort of on pause because I really didn't know what I wanted to do next. I ended up going back into television, but not into adult entertainment. I actually wanted to be a broadcast journalist, and I worked for a local NBC. Like, that was my dream. And I had a lot of talent and a lot of opportunity. And then I went, off the rails into the adult world and tried to come back. And I had an interview with NBC Denver, which was like, the top market. I had an in there, and within 10 minutes, they're like, you've done XYZ. People have seen you naked. You're never going to report hard news, ever. Let go of that dream. And I'm grateful that they told me that. They didn't beat around the bush. They're like, your career is done in broadcast journalism. And so then I was like, okay, I don't know who I am, what I want to do. I'll go to graduate school. I like helping people. I'm interested in psychology. I'll try that. I mean, literally, that's how it happened.
Wow.
Yeah.
You pivoted that fast.
Yeah, because I think you need to. And that's one thing about me is I'm good at the pivot. And any alcoholic is good at reinventing themselves because you have to be. You burn so many fucking bridges. It's like, okay, I'll go over here now. We get good at that, right? Yeah. So I'm always like that. Like, I heard one of my friends, he owns a bunch of gyms, super successful. This guy came from nothing, came to the country illegally, didn't speak the language, had $10 in his pocket, built an empire, right? And he looked at me one day and he said, you can drop me anywhere in the world, take all my money, take my family, take everything that matters to me, put me somewhere I don't speak the language, come back in 2 years and see what I built. Like, that to me, I'm like, you're interesting. Yeah. I want that,
Yeah.
That level of I will always be okay because I have me is what we're trying to do with our clients. That's what we're trying to do with ourselves, even in our relationships, right? It's 100%. Like, that is the goal.
100%.
I got me.
Yeah. So they tell you at Denver, forget your dream.
Yes.
Right? Forget it. It's not going to happen. And you go back to school.
Yes. Yeah. And it It was a difficult transition for sure, you
Yeah.
know, because when you're just surviving off your looks and you don't really have to do anything, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? It was, I was drunk 90% of the time. Right now, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, I got to study. I got to show up on time. I got to like use my mind again. It was fascinating, but I love learning. So it was incredible. I had wonderful mentors that really believed in me. So ironically though, what's happening is a relapse. I'm not blaming this individual because like that relapse was in me. It was coming no matter what. But the mirror, you know, the magnifier, the catalyst for it was I didn't remember being sexually assaulted when I was a little girl. So I worked with a male therapist at this treatment center who helped me uncover all of my sexual trauma. And then 2 years to the day after my exit, he hit on me. So he waited just the amount of time he needed to not lose his license and then hit on me, and it just shattered me. It was like I was so fragile as far as trust in men, trust in myself, not seeing myself as a sex object anymore, believing I was more than that. I thought this person cared about me. And then I get this email and that was it. And I started drinking again. So now I'm in graduate school studying addiction treatment and psychology and counseling. I want to go into the addiction field and I start drinking again. And it was like so terrifying. And I held it together for a really long time. You could say I drank like a normal person. So I guess I do know what it feels like to be in denial because I didn't know what else to do. I was just hanging on for dear life, literally. And before I started teaching, so I got hired at the university to teach addiction courses, I went to rehab again and I got sober and clean and was like, get your shit together once and for all. There's no more chances.
Man, this is a lot, Joe. I mean, think about it. The therapist-client relationship is very, very deep.
Yeah.
And you're telling somebody your deepest, darkest secrets, and the trust is built.
Yeah.
And then that trust is broken.
Yeah.
And it sends you back into our coping mechanism,
Yes.
right? Which we would say is a relapse, of course. But
Yes.
it's just a way of coping with our emotions and what we're dealing with. You go back to rehab,
Yes.
you get sober.
This
Okay.
time, once and for all. So this time I did aversion therapy, and I did it at a place called Schicksal Hospital, which sadly closed, and I'm really hoping somebody changes that soon. But it was a 10-day program. So I walk into this tiny little room, and they inject me with something that caused flu-like symptoms, chills, sweating, nausea. And then they had me drink an entire water glass full of Iboga. So for anybody that has kids, you know, they eat something they shouldn't, you need to induce vomiting, you take a tablespoon. Well, I drank a water glass full of it and then just started pounding drinks, like 20 glasses just full of alcohol, like the worst jungle juice you can imagine too, just wine, beer, vodka, everything into these glasses. You're pounding it, vomiting like The Exorcist. It's awful.
Wow.
So brutal. And then the worst part though is because I'm like, dude, I drink and puke all the time. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah.
Tuesday. This shit's not gonna work, okay?
Right.
Like I'm very good at this. So then they put you in this room though, and they soak rags in alcohol, so you're so sick. Think of the worst food poisoning you've ever had. You're just laying there dying and all you can smell is alcohol for hours.
Oh my God.
So it's like the worst time out of your life. But the next day, they did this treatment where you went into this room, they hooked an IV up of Propanol, which of course is what Michael Jackson overdosed on. It's an anesthetic. It was Propanol and truth serum. And they would put me under, but not completely. So they were doing therapy with my unconscious. I would wake up in another room an hour later and hear these transcripts of counseling with my unconscious. And they would also implant, you know, affirmations. I don't drink, whatever. And they ask your unconscious self, is the aversion therapy holding? So you can't even lie.
Wow.
And so it was 10 days of aversion therapy, Propanol treatment, aversion therapy, Propanol treatment. 10 days, I did that 13 years later, still to this day, have never wanted a drink.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Wait, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What did you, if you remember, what did you remember listening back to from your subconscious therapy that you were not even aware about? Like, what did you hear anything that blew your mind?
Well, what was fascinating to me is it wasn't the big traumas that I talked about. It was moments like being on the playground when everybody turned against me and I felt like I didn't belong. And it was smaller moments like that where I felt very unwelcome in this world. And when I think back to before my addiction, that really is what I felt. I was one of those weird kids. I had a diary when I was 4 and I actually found it. And it was like, I don't belong here. I mean, that literally is what I came into the world feeling. And then there was a series of events, which of course my ego was like, see, I'm right, you don't belong here, and now we're gonna prove it, and we're gonna magnetize to more of these experiences that tell you you don't belong. And so in these counseling sessions, it was not the big traumas, it was the micro hurts that I latched onto.
That like lack of connection, that lack of
Yes.
feeling I belong.
The attunement, right? I take a tuning fork here and here, it attunes. I didn't have that in the world. And I desperately craved it.
Yeah.
And that lack of not having that, it was like I chemically created that experience for myself. But you're not really, I mean, you're hijacking chemicals and feel-good chemicals and all that shit, but what you're really doing is creating a state where you don't care that you don't have it. You still don't have it.
Right, no, I get it.
Right? You just don't care that you don't anymore. And that was the relief I was looking for.
No, I'm not aware, and we were talking before we got on camera together, but I wasn't aware of what aversion therapy was. But I did get to study you before you came because I wanted to make sure that, I was going to be really here and really present. One of the things that I do know about you is that you're very spiritually grounded, very. But the aversion therapy, it doesn't seem like it has anything to do with God or giving it up to a higher power. It seems like it's really more internal and the physical relationship with alcohol.
Absolutely. And for me, it's like, what's more God than that? You know what I mean? Here you are, deal with your shit, figure it out. Here's some science, bam,
Yeah.
What was cool about this treatment center, though, was they incorporated the 4 agreements as the primary teaching. So all of a sudden, I'm like, what's Toltec wisdom? It was a beautiful introduction. But then I met this man who became my mentor, who was like, here, read this book by Eckhart Tolle. And all of a sudden I was like, oh, okay, become the observer. And I don't know why it landed for me, but I'm like, when I become my anger, I'm very dangerous and out of control. When I observe my anger, I can channel it in a way that's actually kind of fun,
Yeah.
And I just started learning all of these spiritual concepts that became really the foundation of my recovery. But my sobriety, yeah,
it's amazing.
was just science.
It's amazing. I came from a world, I love this conversation so much because I came from a world where the way the 12 steps helped me and the way I dove into that work when I got sober, if you were to really ask me, let's say off the camera, back then, if I was even on camera, I would actually tell you, and I believed it, like, this is the only way.
Yeah.
And as I've gotten older and more experienced and have more conversations like this, it just fascinates me how many different ways and how many different modalities work to help people get sober. So like this aversion therapy, the 4 agreements, the Eckhart Tolle book, I just think it's I love it.
Yeah.
I really, really love it.
Well, and it's, because that was told to me early on many times by people, if you don't do AA, you're never going to get sober. And like, what a dangerous thing to say to somebody who I tried that. It didn't work for me.
Yeah.
I think everyone should do the 12 steps on this planet. I still work with them. I think it's phenomenal. But I'll give you an example, right? Like I work with a lot of therapists that are not going to go to an AA meeting.
Yeah.
They're just not. So it's like we have to, and kudos to you for saying, wow, that's where I was, and then I opened my mind,
Yeah.
you know, because that's what we're all doing. It's so easy to be so judgmental about these different things. We have our own lens, we have our own opinions, but it's like when it comes to healing, different people at different times of their life need different interventions. You know, it's this
100%.
one size fits all is where we really lose people.
Yeah. Wow. So it was a 10-day program.
Yes, 10 days.
10 days. So that's an intense 10 days.
It was. It was very intense. And when I came out of it, I did not have that pink cloud like I did from the one before. I was like, what the hell was that? And what do I do now? You know, but what was crazy about it was I didn't have any cravings. There was no illusion of wanting to go back. So I was just like, here I am. Free. Now what am I going to do with it?
What did you do with it?
So I love teaching. I loved it. And then I got big into prevention work. So this is a funny story. I had this incredible, famous sports psychologist come and watch me do one of my prevention talks at the university. And at the time, I was dating a guy who played for the Yankees, and I dropped that to the baseball team. And, you know, I just had this really snazzy, you know, fun, cool girl presentation, right? So I was like, come watch me and give me feedback. So we're sitting at Starbucks afterwards, and I'm like, so what'd you think? And he just looked at me and he's like, do you really want to know? And I said, well, yeah, actually I do. He said, you use your looks and you lose your power. You will interest people, but you'll never move them.
It's a good mentor.
It was powerful, but then he said the most important thing. He goes, there's parts of you that are special and parts of you that aren't, and you have them seriously confused. And it changed my life.
It's the sweetest thing I've ever heard anyone say, really.
Well, you are the only one that has had that reaction so far. Everyone else is like, oh my God, what an asshole, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that was from love. That was the kindest thing. And that to me is, you know, especially in work with clients, it's like when you truly see somebody for who they really are and you understand their inherent value and worth, it frees you up to have those difficult conversations of this is who you want to be and this is who you are. And that gap in between is your depression, your anxiety, your addiction. This is what I see.
Yeah.
You know, and it, the courage it took for him to say that
It's
to me.
so I think it's loving. You know, when we're off camera, I'll show you a text that I just sent my daughter recently that said something very similar. I mean, she's in college and she's gorgeous and she's, you know, and I was saying something of that extent of like, you know, I want them to value you for you.
Yeah.
And not what they see in this image, and you know they don't even know who you really are.
Right.
They don't even know who you really are. But I mean, to hear that in a professional way, I mean, I'm sure it hit home, but I think it's a really loving thing that he gave you. It's like a gift.
Absolutely. It was a pattern interrupt for the illusion, you know, that I was operating in, because I did get enough accolades. I mean, when you talk about your daughter, it's like you get the attention, you get the, you know, but it's not meaningful. It's not real. It's like the sugar high that goes away. It's not nourishment, you know?
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden, it's like, don't use these easy ass tools. You know, who are you beyond that?
Yeah, I like that. It's not the sugar, it's the sugar high that goes away. It's real nourishment.
Yes.
I like that.
But you have to be connected to it within yourself. I mean, I can look at all my relationships, my marriage, whatever. It was like, because I thought that's all I was. I attracted men who were like, that's all you are. And then you're caught in this cycle, right? And it's so deep. And when we look at toxic relationships and where they come from, especially somebody who has stopped one addiction, you know, we allow our relationships to become our next one. And that is exactly what I did. So I'm out of rehab and, sober, I'm killing it, I'm working in the field. I meet this individual who was very unhealthy for me, and he became my addiction. Mm-hmm. And that was it. And the highs, the lows, the chemical shitstorm that's happening. I'm like, this is what's familiar. This feels good.
Yeah.
I could have never had a healthy relationship back then. I would have been bored to death. I would have absolutely gone insane from peace and real connection. I didn't know how to hold it. And that's one thing I didn't realize until even recently, is so much of my life has been learning how to stretch my capacity to hold joy. Because you go, well, of course you want to be happy, don't you? And you go, I do. But can you hold it? Will you self-sabotage it? Out of fear, out of patterns, out of unconscious beliefs that you don't deserve it. Can you hold love?
Before we get to that, because I want to hear about that joy and holding love. So that gentleman that we're talking about, that becomes your husband? Or no, this is somebody else?
The really toxic one?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
of course I married him, yeah. Yes.
And you guys were married for how long?
We were together for 10 years. So,
so that's enough.
My 30s, and there was a lot of beautiful things too, though. He introduced me to martial arts, which also became one of my healthier addictions. Yeah, I loved it. I was like hitting shit and I'm not getting arrested. This is awesome. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
And that empowerment and that, I really encourage anybody, when you're new in sobriety, you got to fill that space. Mm-hmm. You got to fill it. And so get curious about what would make me happy and try everything. Because the bottom line is we don't know. We don't know. I didn't even know what I felt when I first got sober. Yeah. I'd have to look at one of those stupid doctor charts and be like, I think I feel sad, I didn't even know what an emotion was. So it's just...
You're the first person I've ever spoken to that knows I share about that. They had a poster on the wall when I was getting sober with the faces and the emotion.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And I just had one face the entire time, which was like which was my default mechanism.
Yes.
So you think I'm happy and I can go do what I want to do. If I wanted to kill you, I had that face. If
yes.
I was sad, I had that face. So you're the first person to ever bring that up.
Yeah,
to me.
You get it.
Yeah.
I love that.
So he came with certain blessings, martial arts.
Yeah, and yada, yada, yada. There was good times, bad. It's the same shit, you know, any of us can say when we look back on a relationship. But what I'll say is it was necessary. I grew more in that time with him than I had ever grown in my entire life. Unfortunately, it was through pain, it was through heartache, it was through, I would be so mad at him all the time for violating my boundaries when I was really mad at myself for letting him, that is probably the best thing I got out of that relationship was noticing in myself where I was blaming the other person instead of taking accountability. It's no, the problem is I accepted unacceptable behavior.
Yeah.
Who you really mad at?
Yeah.
So definitely many lessons, many gifts.
Amazing. That ends after 10 years.
Yes.
What a ride.
Well, and by the way, now I'm living in Mexico. We sold our business, sold the building, sold the house, sold everything during COVID, and just retired in Cabo. So now I'm in another country. Sober.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, this is not going to work.
Yeah.
This is, we gave it a good go, but I'm done, you know? And it was crazy because I had tried to leave before, and it was like the drunk, the white knuckling. Oh my God, every part of me ached. I needed to be back. I had to have my drug again.
Yeah.
And then it was the same experience with aversion therapy where it was just done. I had that with him as well. It's just the final straw. And I was like, I'm free.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need to do this anymore. I don't need to do this with you anymore.
Amazing.
We're good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Painful?
Super painful. I'm really lucky though. I don't feel regret. And I think because I genuinely grow and learn from everything, that's just not something I ever feel. I don't deal with it. I don't look back and go, oh, I wish I could have, would have, should have. I know myself and I'm always doing the best that I can in that moment. So that frees me from regret. So it's not that. I did have the loss of the dream of what it could become. And there was certainly, even though it was really challenging in a lot of ways. You know, I loved this person, and I know he loved me, and we did the best we could. So there's an honoring, I realized, like, we can grieve with reverence instead of just anger, lashing out, fuck you, this was awful, bet, you know,
Yeah.
that's easy. That's easy to go to that.
Oh, yeah.
But to hold it for what it really was. And I read something once that it stuck with me. It was like, the people that hurt you the most in this world love you the most in the spiritual, right? So I was like, oh, okay, he really does love me.
They're our greatest teachers.
Yes. So it just, I had to work through a lot though. I mean, he had moved all of our money to an account I wasn't on. So now I'm in this other country. I don't have access to anything. Like, trust me, it was ugly. I don't want to sit here like I was Buddha the whole time.
Yeah.
I lost my shit. And I remember though, after one of my spin outs, I saw him on a date in a cafe, and I busted in there, and I'm like, dude, you need to blah, blah, blah. And I looked at her, I'm like, you can do way better. Stormed out. Like, yeah, you know, I mean, it wasn't my finest moment, but I was talking to one of my friends, and he looks at me and he goes, he is not the source of your love. He's not the source of your wealth. He's not the source of your money, your happiness, your love. So what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I still had given all my power away. Even now, because I need you to divorce me and get this done with the attorneys. I kept delegating my power outside of myself and getting angry about it.
Yep.
You know, so again, it was like lesson upon lesson.
I had these patterns too, but it's nice to hear. It's like refreshing to hear it from a different perspective. And I would call the other one, remember the angry, like the girl that just walked into the bar and saw him? I call that Jersey.
Yeah, you got a Jersey.
That's the Jersey.
Yeah.
But this whole, the pain and everything, it sounds like every step that we've walked through so far in this journey is you also take just full ownership.
Yes.
You take full ownership, which is freeing you.
Yes.
So where do we go after Cabo?
So the last 2.5 years of my life have been the absolute best years of my life ever.
Yeah.
I still spend a lot of time in Cabo. I have an amazing community down there. And it's fascinating because you think of Cabo and you think of drunk 18-year-olds at Senior Frogs. I have a beautiful community there, and most of them don't drink, but not because they're alcoholics. They just don't. They just choose not to.
Like healthy. They're just
yeah,
healthy
they're
people.
healthy, and they know that lowers their frequency.
Mm-hmm.
They drink and they go, wow, I'm a worse version of myself. I'm not going to do that anymore. So I have amazing friends there, and just recently connected with like the absolute love of my life, who's just so awesome. Because I never stopped going out. Like, I did for a while, a couple years in sobriety. I like hibernated just to make sure I was good. And so I'm not encouraging people like, yeah, go out right away in early recovery. Yeah. But at some point you got to live, you know? And so I just do everything I did before. I just do it sober, you know? So I love house music. I love going to these big festivals, and like, to me, music is medicine, right? I love to dance. And so of course I find this amazing man who sees me as so much more than the superficial shit, who's a phenomenal DJ. So yeah, now I'm here in Miami Music Week, having just had the time of my life, and it's incredible. And that's the thing that I just wish more people could know. And because I embody it, you embody it. When we say it, people feel it, because truth is always true. Whether you believe it or not, you can feel it. It's like, no, sobriety doesn't have to suck.
Yeah.
It is like, oh my God, life is so good. And that's not to say that there isn't hard moments. You know, I'm still dealing with my divorce bullshit and attorneys, and I get that message and I'm like, ugh, okay, what do I need to do? Learn to sit in it. Learn to be okay not being okay.
Yeah.
You know, learn to regulate your nervous system, and then remember what you want and remember what you are. And that to me is the most freeing thing. Like, no matter what happens to me, I'll be okay.
Yeah. Emotional intelligence, emotional sobriety. It's like that next level.
Yes.
You know, and that Superman is right over here, good-looking gentleman. But I think it's important to talk about, because people, we were talking about it off camera together, but people want to know that there's love on the other side.
Yes.
And these these dreams can happen on the other side. And I think that's actually what will make clients even watch this, future clients, if you watch this and call, because, people want what you have.
Right.
And if you can't let them know that there's a love story on the other end, after the Chargers and the Yankees and the divorce and you know what I mean? Like, there's real love on the other end. They're gonna be like, where is this story go?
And it's not to play devil's advocate at all, but it's like everybody wants your spot till they see what it took to earn it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, this was not easy to get here. It was not easy to sit in like the intense pain, Like when you numb out, you skip all those parts of the suffering. And the suffering is an important part of the final product, which you see now. And it's like, people need to be willing to do that.
Yeah.
Because that is the true payoff. You know what I mean? And it is available to everyone, but you got to do the work. And I'll give you an example. So before I met my amazing partner now, I got into one of these toxic situationships with this playboy. He was like friends with Dan Bilzerian, like that whole, literally, I cringe even speaking it out loud. Okay, but it was charismatic and it was fun and it was heightened. And again, I know myself. But I went into it with like my eyes wide open and I'm like, all right, I like to play in the deep end. Let's see what's up. Let me find what's here. I'll be very honest about my intention and what I'm here for, because I think that's important too. You don't drag people into your shit without like giving them all the information. But I was like, let me just see what I'm here to learn. And so we had this experience. I'm now laying in an Iboga ceremony, 3 days under the medicine, just in the most intense shame you could ever experience. So for those that don't know, Iboga is an African bark and root that you take. It's used in rite of passage ceremonies, but it's also great for addiction because it resets the dopamine receptors in the brain. So
is it like a hallucinogenic? Are you like in a trance or something, or in a trip?
Yes, but unlike, like mushrooms or ayahuasca, it blasts you out. Iboga brings you in. It's in this body, in this here and now, who are you reckoning? It's the most intense shadow work you will ever do. So I'm sitting there just suffering, and then it hit me. I was still holding on to so much sexual shame. And then I saw this individual metaphorically in front of me, and I projected all my sexual shame onto him and then tried to fall in love with it. How, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it sounds crazy, but we're all doing that to our own various degrees. When you have an unconscious belief or something that is unsettled or an energetic charge within you that you are not consciously aware of and working with, we will project that on other people and try to work through it. That's how the trauma bonds happened. Mm-hmm. So how do we break it? It's that moment of consciousness. And then it's unnecessary, and then there's no energetic connection threading you to people that are not healthy for you anymore. Bam, done, cleared.
Wow.
Like, it's powerful.
3 days of that.
Yes.
Intense.
Yeah.
I'm asking as an addict, as a former, any highs in that, or no? You're
suffering.
Yeah. So you're going to war.
Yeah, no, this is not you'd never be like, oh, I'm just going to pop some Iboga and go dance. Yeah. No, none of that.
No Jimi Hendrix moments, no Smurfs walking on
It's
the
not like MDMA therapy where you're like, oh my God, this is so pleasant. Right. And I love that too, though, with PTSD, because we're re-imprinting a new experience in the body because you're flooded with endorphins on a painful memory. We're energetically re-imprinting the trauma.
Yeah.
With love. So I'm not discounting that at all, but no, Iboga, Ibogaine, 100% not that. It's awful.
You really have done the work, though.
Yes.
You've really done the work. So aside from all the work that you've done, like, this is a lot of work. Immersion, the Iboga, the time by yourself, this is a lot of inner work. When you're working with your clients now, like, what would that framework look like?
I require people to work with me for at least 4 months.
Good rule.
When we start digging into things, right before the miracle happens, so often we're like, I'm out, again, that self-sabotage piece comes up. I like to work with people for about 8 months. That seems to be the sweet spot, and somebody that's
8 for you?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Yeah.
Just to see through,
Totally.
because you're becoming a different version of yourself through all these different, upgrades, right? Like you process one trauma, now you're a new version of yourself. You discharge that energy, now you're a new version of yourself, so there's something to be said with that consistency and that longevity and that willing to show up and be vulnerable. Sometimes that is what makes it work. It's just the willingness to sit there and be real, even if it's for an hour,
Yeah. So 4 months minimum. Typically, we'd like 8 months.
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's not to say that it couldn't go over or under. But I also, the way I work with people is they have access to me throughout the week, because you can't just be like, oh, okay, I'm going to reserve this for Tuesday at 5 o'clock for 50 minutes and then get the fuck out of my office. It's like when something happens in real time, I may not be available. I won't respond right away, but I want to hear it.
Yeah.
I want to know what you are experiencing in that moment, so
Which makes you a real coach, by the way.
Yeah.
What I have found, and look, we live in a really amazing time, no doubt about it. So it's not judging, it's just observing. What I've seen is like this coaching industry explode,
Yes.
right? But a lot of what I've seen is not really coaching. It's not what you like getting in the trenches with somebody like you're doing right now. You know what I mean? Where I'll explain to my clients, when Michael Jordan was playing, Phil Jackson was at every practice.
Yes.
You don't get to just show up once a week, show up on a Zoom call, say what you want to say, and then you're my client, pay me this much. So I love how deep you get in with your clients.
Yeah, and I only work with 4 people at a time because I'm exceptionally invested,
Yeah.
I mean, like really, and the people that I choose to work with, it's because I love them.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't work with somebody I didn't truly love. And so it's a really, really powerful relationship, because it's like, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
Like I really am. And I know what I was looking for when I was getting sober. And I had a few people that could offer that level of connection to me, and also, hold impeccable boundaries. But here's the problem with a lot of the coaching space right now. They don't practice what they preach. They don't embody what they speak. They're excellent marketing individuals, and it's great because that shit's hard. I hate it. I don't like selling myself.
It's extremely difficult. And they've mastered that part very well.
They're great salesmen and shitty therapists, and that's, what though? Like there's somebody for everyone too. Like that person is going to help somebody create the life that they want. So I believe that, but it is a lot of buyer beware, and it's hard though when you're in that space of vulnerability and you don't trust yourself and you're desperate, it's hard to tap in intuitively and be like, this person's a good fit. It's like asking a fish to run, it's like, how? I can't.
Yeah.
So it's, that integrity piece is really important, but I do believe that there's a lot of amazing resources out there as well. And it's like, just really like love yourself enough to find the right one. Because having a bad therapist, like one that hits on you afterwards, can be really damaging,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
People need to earn
That
your
experience
trust.
you went through.
Yes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
But a lot of times therapists, everybody. So I used to teach a counseling class at the university. So I taught people, that wanted to become therapists. Like that initial rapport building stage is so important, and it's a delicate balance, right? Like obviously you're not going to sit there and talk about yourself as a therapist, but you have to let people in. They have to know
100%.
you, I remember going into people's offices and they got all their fancy Harvard degrees and this big oak desk that they sit behind, and they're 12 feet away and they're checking off boxes on a clipboard like you're nothing. It just, have you been raped? Yep. On to the next question. Like that is not what we're doing.
Yeah.
No.
You just made me, I have to bring it up because I want to honor his memory. So for the first 5 years when I was getting sober, I was like in therapy every week. But the gentleman I went to, he passed away. His name was Gene Abelson, and this is the guy that toured with Eric Clapton when he got sober, and Aerosmith,
Wow.
right? Like really, so I felt safe. But the best part about Gene was there was no like anything I said, anything I shared, it was like what we're doing right now.
Yes.
He'd be like, been there, done that. Boy, do I have a story for you. And it made me feel even safer to let all of that garbage and all that vulnerability out, because he was making me feel like there's nothing wrong with me.
Right.
You know, he was making me feel safe.
And what a gift, you know, for somebody, again, you can know it and then you can know it, like that heart-centered, I know there's nothing wrong with you. I love this story of when the statue of David was created. Because, you know, at that time, nobody had seen anything like that. People were blown away. So they asked him, how did you create something so beautiful? And he's like, it was easy. I just chipped away the parts that weren't angel. And like, what a reframe, you know, we think so often we're broken, there's something wrong, we got to start from nothing. No, you already are that. We're just chipping away what doesn't fit, what's out of alignment, you know?
100%.
Yeah, it's so important though that when we open up to somebody, they be able to hold that version of us with us, you know, until we can see it.
Sounds like you do it really well for your clients, actually. Like really,
Thank you.
You just hold that space for them.
Yes.
You hold that vision. So where would you like to see this go? Like, do you have that, or is it organic and you go one day at a time and you see where, you know, God takes you, or is there like a vision with this? Like you.
It's a great question. I have learned that my small mind is so limiting that I have no idea what's going on behind the curtain. I mean, I would have never thought like, oh, you're going to be living in Cabo.
Right. Sober.
You're sober. I would have never thought, oh, you're going to meet this amazing person, you know, and guess what? Now you're moving to Austin and splitting time, Cabo, Austin. Like my limited, you know, understanding of what's possible would only limit me. So what I like to do is, yes, I want to keep working with unbelievable people because it is such an honor and a gift. And it's so selfish. I get so much out of watching people heal and transform and fall in love and lead beautiful lives and be better fathers and mothers and serve their community. Like, it gives me chills. Like, there is nothing better than seeing somebody reclaim their life. Like, that I will always want to do.
I love that you use the word selfish. I use that too.
Yeah.
Right? Because we really get high off of watching somebody get better. But it is selfless at the same time what you're doing. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Right? You only take 4 at a time.
Yeah.
And you really invest yourself and you're there for them. Even if it's not that second, you'll be back to them as soon as you can.
Right.
You know, you really are invested in your clients. You're really invested in the work.
Yeah, and it comes from paying it forward. You know, we both had amazing people in our lives, and I've had so many angels just swoop in at the perfect moment and be like, no, it's this. We're doing this, and I got you, and take my hand, and we're going this way.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible to be able to give that.
It's
back.
amazing. It's amazing. All right, so vision, the limited brain can't even let you know what it really is. You're gonna spend some time in Austin with your beautiful man. Spend some time in Cabo. You're gonna let your mission evolve.
Yes.
So let's end it like this. Like, if you were to try to find 1 to 3 sentences on what this mission means to you, how you'd want to be remembered, what this work means to you. Do you think you could find that? You think you can manufacture that? I know I'm putting you on the spot, but.
You know, it's interesting because I've asked people, you know, that I'm close to, like, what did you learn from me?
Yeah.
Because I love that question, right? Because I'll tell you what I learned from you.
Yeah.
And the number one thing that people have said is, you remind me that there is always hope. You know, and so what I would say is healing is always possible. Like, I was that person, and you'd never think it looking at me now. I was so sick, you know, multiple suicide attempts. I woken up in a mental institution chained to a bed in San Francisco. Like, when I say of all my years of working in the addiction field, I was one of the worst alcoholics I've ever encountered.
So you had suicide attempts?
Absolutely.
Oh, wow.
And I meant
I
it.
Yeah.
They were not like, oh,
Like,
I
not
need
cry for
attention,
help.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
like, no, I wanted
Like, I'm
to
out.
die. I was done. And that was the most relief I had felt in years, the moment before I thought it was over, of just finally I'm free. So when I say I was sick, I was very sick.
Yeah.
And I am not special. And if I can do it, anyone can. And that is what I believe is my gift and that I can share, is that I know it because I lived it and I'm experiencing it on a day-to-day, moment-to-moment, the blessings upon blessings. And I was somebody that felt I did not belong.
That's so beautiful. Can I say something corny? I could say something corny. It's my show, right? but no, because what you said really hit me, especially about the hope part. So I'm this kid, and my whole life I wanted to be Superman. You know, my whole I always just, that was my dream, to save people, to help people. And you know, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, there was a movie, they did the relaunch, and it was called Man of Steel. And in this scene, you know, the Lois Lane's asking him, like, what's this? What is this? You know, and what is it? He goes, oh, you know, on my planet, this means hope. You know, and she's like, well, here it's an S. But the fact that you said it's about hope, that means the world to me.
Yeah, faith is literally what fuels us when we don't have anything else. It is the only thing that can move us forward. And I was speaking at a conference last year with Tara Connors, who's, you know, was former Miss USA, got busted for a coke. She's one of the most fascinating people in the world. She's one of my dear friends now. I love her. But she gave this talk, which I was like, oh, I never thought about this. So she really wanted to get pregnant. They were trying forever, and she was about to give up. And she's like, I had no faith, no hope. I never thought it was going to happen for me. And then her husband's sitting there with their baby girl. So sometimes God is bigger than our hope, which is also something to remember.
I like that.
Yeah.
Why don't we end on that? Sometimes God is bigger than our hope.
Yeah.
That was beautiful. Thanks for coming all this way to
Thank
Florida.
you for having me. This
Absolutely.
has been awesome.
Amazing. I can't wait to watch it back.
Me too.